All right. Welcome back to a family business podcast. Today's topic is working with sellers, pain points. If you're an agent, do you ever have any pain points when working with a seller?
Well, yeah, and it's evolved over the years. I really think one of the easiest ways to resolve pain points is to lay out a realistic expectation right up front. Like we had talked about, I've been in the business for how long, Andrea?
Oh my gosh. PT, 1, 2, 3, 25 years.
25 years. And I remember when I first got into the business, I would go along with what the seller wanted as long as it was realistic, that I didn't want to ruffle the feathers. And I learned over time that that's not the best strategy. And the reason why they're hiring you is that you're the expert. So now I go into the appointments and obviously have all my homework done like I always have. But I've got the confidence now to tell them that, hey, this is what the market's doing and this is where you should be range-wise. And I do not let them talk me into a higher price unless there's justification, of course, right? And you always want to set up a realistic expectation like the last 5 years. I mean, pretty much everybody's expectation is that the house sells in a week or less, which is crazy. There were a lot of years there, which Andrea can vouch that it was a lot longer than that. So in those kinds of markets, you also have to set them up that it's not all horseshoes and rainbows. Is that the phrase?
Isn't?
Unicorns and rainbows.
Unicorns and rainbows. So, yeah. And right now, I mean, we're getting into a market that is transitioning a little bit, not in a bad way. It's just kind of like it was last year. And Bobby and PT here,
our Market Mondays on Tuesdays.
Our Market Monday on Tuesdays showed us a graph, which is very accurate. We're higher than we were last year at this time due to what I really think was the election, but not as crazy as it is at times in September. But it's a good market still.
Yeah, it's just that you mentioned that. It's crazy to think that the election was this time last. It's a full year now.
I mean, this is when
kind
we
of
were
forgot
into
about it.
Yep.
But just to kind of navigate through everything as well is at the end of the day, communication. We preach that, and that's the only way that you're going to hopefully avoid either some objections or the pain points that we'll kind of discuss a little bit further.
So one little story we want to tell about how some of these pain points came to. We maybe didn't. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but here's a little story. So we had clients that, and this is, I'm going to say 10. Gosh, it had to be at least 10 years ago. Around 10 years ago, we had clients, friends of ours. Brad golfs with the husband. And we'd known them for several years, and they were building a new house and selling their existing house. And so we went over, and the market was kind of on that. It's not really a buyer's market anymore. I think we were just in a balanced market, really. So anyway, so we went over and met with them. They definitely thought their house was worth what Zillow said it was worth, which we're going to talk about that. And also didn't think they should paint the orange rooms, the yellow rooms, the blue rooms, the green rooms. They also had some older carpet, things like that. They had a great layout, great yard, great neighborhood, popular. And so we probably, we let them get away with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we priced it a little too high. We didn't do the market prep we should have done. And the house sat on the market and sat on the market and sat on the market. Then they finally ended up painting it, putting new carpet in, dropping the price. And then it finally sold. But that was a painful experience for them and for us. And I think as agents, you can learn from that story. And we're going to talk about that because the worst thing or the worst thing for you is to not, like Brad just said, not be the expert, right? They're hiring you for a reason. You need to do your job. And if they could sell their house on their own for top dollar, they wouldn't need you.
Well, and just to go deeper too, I mean, you're setting yourself up to have tough conversations down the road. I mean, yes, there's always that 1% chance that you get lucky and there's that one buyer looking to pay the amount that, that they're asking, but there's that scary, future down the road that those conversations aren't fun, and it doesn't make you look great at the end of the day either.
Yeah, probably the most uncomfortable conversation in real estate is the price reduction talk. And there have been a couple of times in this crazy market where I've said, okay, we'll try it at a little bit higher price, but if it doesn't sell in X amount of time, I'm going to do exactly what I do on all of our listings. We'll do the staging, we'll do the pictures, we'll do everything, all the marketing, all the social media. But if it doesn't sell within a couple of weeks, then we need to drop the price. And not every time does it hold true. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, we just use what we have as data,
Right.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that the seller, like you said, PT, can't get lucky every once in a while and get more. But if you did go on that higher, if you did go with the higher price that wasn't quite in your recommendation range, at least you've had that conversation that, hey, we might have to adjust this after a couple of weeks. And they remember those conversations. And then if you have to get a price reduction, which I do not want to get a price reduction, that definitely helps.
But honestly, Brad, I mean, it's interesting listening to you have that or tell that story, because that's just not how we operate.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree in the COVID era when things were crazy, we probably did allow that a little bit. And maybe took some of those gambles and went a little bit higher because there was just no end to where the market could go. So you're like, to your point, let's see what happens, right? But really, that's not. We do that maybe 1% of the time, if ever.
Well,
and it has to be a super unique property that we have a really hard time comping out. So when we're on that subject, let's talk about.
Well, hold on just one second there. But there's been times when we've had that conversation and then they stop and they say, okay, you're probably right. Let's go ahead with your price.
Sure. I don't disagree. I'm just saying we very rarely, if a seller's dead set on overpricing their house, we typically will walk away from the listing. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
There's a threshold, or there's a line in the sand that
pain point for us.
Specifically what you shouldn't cross. And if that message doesn't get through to the other party, then it's either, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or this might not be the best.
Well, and always come with data too.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're going to get into right now. So if your agent's listening here, and we've been doing recently CMA trainings in our office with our group for agents to help them price homes. So I guess let's talk a little bit through that. PT and Brad, you both, priced plenty of homes in multiple markets. And why can you not just go over, pull up the Zestimate that the seller has as well, and just price it there? I mean, how is it you should analyze your comps? Why is Zestimate not the Bible?
Well,
it's not
a lot of
reasons.
Not
true. Well, it's just an algorithm, right? And they take surface level data provided to them, which might not even be accurate at the end of the day.
Correct.
What it does, the short synopsis of it is they take the average typically of the neighborhood or the houses around it. What have they sold recently? And it could have been a sale from 4 or 5 years ago in a completely different market, right? So there's a lot of holes in this estimate that makes us uncomfortable. And then, we can walk you through to specifically how we price a home correctly.
Well, and it's even crazier when you go from each side of the river too. I mean, when you're on the Illinois side, there's neighborhoods where there's $100,000 houses, and then in the back of the neighborhood, there's a $500,000 house. Yeah. So when you look at this estimate, those are always way off there. I like to use comps.
So let's talk through that. So let's give some action. Obviously it's, we're doing a podcast, so we don't have a whiteboard here. Well, we could have a whiteboard, but we don't. But so when it comes to doing a CMA, what's some of the A, B, C, D, must do's, must not consider that an agent should do? And obviously every market's going to be a little bit different, but I think across the board, there are some standard principles in the way that you should do a CMA for your seller. So,
well, the first step is how we approach it. There's different ways to do it, but we prefer to walk through the home first. So that then continues on with this estimate ordeal, is that you want to feel and understand what the actual condition of the home is. Zestimate can't go in and feel that. They can't feel, they can't see, they can't touch, they can't smell, right? So that's a huge component of it, as well as understanding, updates that have been done. And they don't have that list of
Right.
homes, there are roofs that have been replaced, or mechanicals that have been replaced, kitchens that have been updated. So you want to compile that data first. And then also find your data source, whether it's the county records or somewhere where you can pull the age of the home, square footage, all the other good data that will help you pull numbers in similar county.
Well, the one
Yeah.
thing that Zillow and the rest of those are pretty good at is they do have the sold properties, including the for sale by owners, but you can't just go off of that.
Right.
I mean, like you said, the county records are big.
Yeah, and so I think so. Step one is that is to make sure that you understand your subject. So I mean, just like if you're going to date someone, you get to know them a little bit before you decide if you like them and want to go on another date. So same thing. So understand your subject. So then, how is it that once you understand what your subject is? How are you? So are you just pulling the houses on that street? You pulling the houses in that neighborhood? Are we pulling sales from 5 years ago? Like,
Boy, these are all good questions. We like to
I hope you know the answer.
Yeah, we like to use homes in the last 6 months. I mean, that's really the preference. And if possible, even closer than that too. We will go out to a year in the past, but because the market's changing all the time, the closer, the better. In this market, what I personally think is the most important is you get that range, right? But then you want to pull the active listings and the pending listings so you know what your competition is. And especially the pendings are very important, that you can kind of see at what price did that house get an offer at. And then the actives are equally as important as the solds. And the reason is that lets you know what your competition is.
Right. And just to kind of take a step back too, we preach understanding the market and being out in the market, right? Whether that's doing open houses or doing broker tours in our area. We do those on Tuesday. But what does that allow you to do? That allows you, if you have a unique property potentially for a neighborhood, there's a chance that you might have to go out of that subdivision or neighborhood, right? And so you might have to think outside of the box or the subdivision and know where a house might be comparable in another city or potentially in a different subdivision. So understanding that as well is a huge component.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that. You got it, PT, or shadow an agent that's out doing showings. I mean, like you went out the other day with a buyer for 3 days in a row looking at houses all over the board, which, it's funny because the longer you're in the business, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to show 30 houses in 3 days. But the really cool thing is, in the earlier years in your career, that's really how you get to learn the business.
Yeah.
Exactly what PT said. So that's a huge component of it, I think, because it's easier to determine what's actually a comp if you know the market better. So that's important. The other thing is, so when you're in the house, here's my question for both of you. So you're at the house, you're on your first date, right?
Yep.
We haven't decided if we just met, right? So you're still understanding your subject and whatnot. So is that the time when you should be going through things that they should approve upon or not approve upon in the house?
I believe that it depends on the situation and timeline potentially. If it's more of in a rush, then yes, you might have to cram that in. But typically, if it's and then obviously if you're doing your walkthrough and there's a major evidence, like I remember once there was standing water around a hot water heater. I said you'd call somebody immediately for that.
For a lot of reasons.
Yes, for a lot of reasons. So I think it's a case by case basis, but most of the time your focus is to kind of getting an understanding of you and the condition of the home.
Totally agree with that. And most owners, I learned this in a Floyd Wickman class back in the day. Ed Escobar was the gentleman.
Is he related to Pink Floyd?
No.
Oh, different family.
Great training program. This was like hardcore sales back then. But anyway,
you did sell Cutco knives, Brad.
One of the biggest deals, which are great knives. One of the biggest things which I've always kind of taken with me is people know,
right?
Like they will say, do you think I should paint this wall? Do you think I should do this? And the reason why they are asking you that question is they know they should. Right. So he said the answer almost every time is I would.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the reason why I asked that question is because I think sometimes it's really easy, like you said, PT, if there's something super glaring that you're like, there's no way you're getting around this, right? You got to take care of it. Like start that now, right? Or if you're considering a major, as a seller, if your seller is considering, we always preach it, like if you're considering a major update or some kind of thing, hey, let's have us walk through it, because it depends on how long before you're going to sell, if it makes sense for you to do it. But the biggest thing is like, when a seller is asking you, hey, do I really need to paint my whole house, Bettendorf beige, like that's what we used to call it, what updates are worth the money? I mean, I think that's where, as an agent, it goes back to understanding your subject, pulling your comps, figuring out the price. Where are they, how you balance that, when do they need to sell it versus how important is, the ROI for them? Because at the end of the day, I think another pain point for a seller is when they spend money updating their house, because every seller thinks that they're going to get dollar for dollar, right? Like, I spent $50,000 a kitchen, so my house is worth $50,000 more. Well, it's not, right? So it's our job to make sure that they're doing the right things. So it's just another way you can alleviate
and
a pain
we've all
point.
kind of been there when the seller says, well, I'm almost ready to like have you over, but I want to do a couple more projects. And I'm always like, well, why don't you have me over that you may not even have to do those projects? And then that's usually a way in the door that they are like, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Well, and it's interesting too, because it's depending on the price range potentially too. I mean, if it's potentially in a lower price range, you don't want to gut a kitchen and over and improve a kitchen in a house in a lower price range and different things like that. So, understanding, hey, let me come over, let me take a look, let's walk through it together, and kind of just go from there to see if there's anything immediate.
Well, and every situation is different. I mean, I'm thinking right now of a house that we have that we recently listed that we debated, and the seller debated doing some of the things, but she's like, I'm going to do it and then I'm just going to sell it. Right. So, and it was one of those houses when we went over there, she could get away with not doing it if it was priced correctly, because of the location, because of the lot, because of the potential. So I think that that's really important in having those discussions. But so let's kind of move on a little bit there, unless anybody wants to add anything in regards to like your CMA. We kind of talked about understand your subject, comps. You want them hopefully within 6 months. The other thing, I just real quick on that, I think too, make sure you're comparing apples to apples, right? Like we have a kind of a rule of thumb, and we've done in our previous brokerage, we did so much relocation business, which if any of you out there have ever done relocation sales, and PT had a couple experiences in the last 24 months with us on that. You literally have to do basically a appraisal for the property. It is intense. Little tiny boxes, get out your readers if you're 50 like me. So we really base the way that we do our CMAs on that process, because it's super accurate. Like it's, I mean, obviously you can't pinpoint it exactly. You don't have a crystal ball, but those relocation companies really want to understand what the house is worth, because if it doesn't sell, which we're going to get again that in a minute, then they want to know what it's truly worth.
Well, and and kind of something to leave us on this last point too, but Brad, how many properties will we like at a minimum to potentially be called comparables or similar?
Minimum of three. I mean, that's really the minimum, and the more the merrier. But at times, depending on where your property's at, it may be tough to get the three, and you may have to reach a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you really want three.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're comparing, ranches to ranches if possible, and 2 stories to 2 stories, and 10 years either side. Those are similar. You don't want a 1-bedroom house compared to a 4-bedroom house, or a house on 3 acres compared to a postage stamp 1/4 acre lot. So just they're comparables because they're comparable.
Similar.
Right. Similar.
Yes, that's right.
So if a house, another thing is like for sellers, we always in interviewing are like, oh, what's one of your fears? I swear the number one thing you hear from sellers is that their house is going to sit on the market. Right. Yeah. So what's your advice to agents out there, or how is it if you're a seller that would be listening to this right now, like what do you do if your house is just sitting there? It's getting no love. What do you do? And what's the reason why that's happening too? Like what's going on?
Normally it's the price.
Right.
But I will say I have seen homes that are not marketed very well at all, and they are actually priced properly. And what I mean by that is they have terrible pictures, right? And I always, in every listing presentation, I always tell every seller, the most important part of our advertising are the pictures.
Right.
That's where people go, and they determine whether they're going to look at the home or not just off of the pictures. So if the pictures aren't good, we're already behind the 8 ball automatically.
I have a story on this, PT, and then I'll let you add your thought. I will never forget, Brad, that we had this house. It was the guy worked for Mid-American Energy. He was getting transferred to Des Moines, which is about 3 hours away. Very nice house. And we actually were the listing agents when this guy bought the house with a different agent. It was a brand new house. We had represented the builder at the time, probably like $500,000 house. Very nice property. And I'll never forget because they called us to talk to us about selling it. And we're like, that's really weird, because we knew who he had used to purchase it. He's a good agent, very likable, still in the business. So when we went over to meet with them, we're like, oh, well, we really appreciate the opportunity, but we thought for sure you were going to use, XYZ agent. And he literally said to us, he said, you know what? I had him come over, and then he did his little walkthrough, and he got out his iPhone and started taking pictures of the house. And I thought they were just for him to and he said, oh no, we're just going to get this all ready to go. We'll get you listed tomorrow, and he said, I was like, looked at my wife after he left, said, we need to call someone else. Yeah. So to your point, I mean, can you imagine iPhone photo?
No. And even when we used to take our pictures with the camera, we at least had the house staged first. I mean, you wouldn't just go in and take pictures. I mean, that's,
it's fun to see, once in a while, those houses come on the MLS that don't fit the frame right. And then also you've got like a finger in the picture.
Or you can see the car window.
The best one that we saw recently was there was someone actually doing work on the deck. They were like painting the deck.
In the pictures?
In the pictures.
Oh, stop it.
And this is legit listed home.
Come on, guys.
And it's how you present, right? I mean, that's an important point, is that I truly do believe that good marketing does help your price too.
Right.
Like, it makes it look cleaner. Just the way that you present the property makes a huge difference.
First impressions are everything, right? And if someone's scrolling through, that's the first one, right? We always tell our potential clients that, your first impression is going to be made within the first 10 seconds they're scrolling through your pictures. And just imagine what they're thinking when they see work being done on the home in a picture.
Yeah, then they're just going to think, what in the world?
It's a joke and it's passed by, right?
Totally. Even social media too, right? Like, we can have a lot of fun with it, but it has to look professional still.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting topic too, to kind of, I mean, I don't know if this is another story for another day, but there's, Shannon Gillette with Real down in Scottsdale kind of called out realtors across the nation on, unprofessionally using social media to list their client's home. And sometimes you want to be creative and outside the box. But from, what it sounded like, there's lines being crossed and it's probably not fully understood by the clients before those things were posted. I mean, yes, it's for your content to also brand yourself, but I mean, these are people's livelihoods, investments that you're selling. And, I think that was kind of her.
Yeah. And I think the analogy that she used is if your listing video can't be viewed by my children, then it's probably crossing a line. And I would agree 100%.
And you see stuff every day. You're like, ooh, like that's just kind of like,
but I mean, that goes back to, know better, do better, right? Come on, guys. I mean, we can do better.
Agree.
But so I think we've kind of established at the end of the day, you can avoid that pain point for your seller if you, number one, are pricing your home appropriately, doing the proper market prep for the property. And then the next thing is, your presentation and how you are marketing that property. Because at the end of the day, every house, unless we are in a recession, depression, all the things, which thank God we haven't been in one of those for a while. And even then, houses will sell if they're priced right. I mean, if they're not selling, again, it goes back to price if it's a bad market.
Yep.
So, that's the
Always.
big thing, is you just really have to make sure that you're setting the expectation. So,
I would say, Andrea, it always goes back to price. I mean, it really does. That even a rundown, not very nice home, if it's priced appropriately, it will sell.
Right.
You know what Grandpa said to me the other day, because he was asking how everything's going on. I was like, I've got this investment property. He's like, you know what? everything sells.
Mhm.
It's just at the right price,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it
Yeah.
just is.
And everything does. And
Yeah.
even if they don't want to do anything, now that could drastically
Right.
lower the value,
But it's going to sell.
it'll sell.
Right,
It'll sell.
exactly. So okay, so let's say that we did our job, we priced it correctly, we prepped it correctly, we did the right marketing for it, and now we have an offer. So now it's the dreaded
Mhm.
inspections.
Which we haven't had to deal with a whole lot in the last 5 years, but I just had one. This was just a couple months ago where the seller completely freaked out and basically, before I even said much, said, I'm not going to repair these things. It's ridiculous and like blah, 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 blah. And then I said, I get it. I mean, I totally get it. So I brought the handyman with me over to the house. I said, hey, let's just get the handyman over there. Let's just walk item by item and see what you want to repair. So we did, and she didn't even realize that these repairs were so minimal and they weren't going to cost a whole lot of money, that at the end of the day, she said, I'll like go ahead and make those repairs. But when you look at it on a list, it can seem overwhelming. Ironically, with that story, the buyers wanted to get out of the contract, so they did, over
and then we sold it to someone else for more.
another issue. But all those repairs that she thought were ridiculous, she ended up making the repairs anyway. So we told the next people that made the offer in the house that, hey, all this has been done, and that made them really comfortable.
There we go. And yeah, I believe that, and this is something we preach to every single realtor that we have in our office or that we talk about this with, but it's important to, not only communicate what an inspection report is going to look like, because if you just, schedule inspections and you send your buyer off to inspections, hopefully your inspector is going to explain, the major things that probably need to be addressed. But you get those reports, they're 50 pages.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, it's not meant to freak people out, but it's so easy too.
Well,
right?
and they have to do their job, right? I mean, if there is an issue, they have to write it down. And I always tell sellers, their job is they have to find something. Right. I mean, that's the reason why they were hired. And not to get to the buyer's agent part of it, but that's always one thing too, that I always encourage them to be at the inspection, at least at the end.
The buyer.
Correct. Right. And the reason is on that side too, like when you read it in writing, it looks like, oh my gosh, I mean, this house is completely like has all these problems. When you really reduce it down and you go item by item, they're usually not that big. It's always the electrical ones that freak people out, because they're typically not very expensive repairs, like a double tapped outlet. Oh my gosh, there's a double tapped outlet in the electrical box. Well, that's an easy repair, and not very expensive.
Well, and again, I think too, you both said this, like it's sitting down with your sellers and saying, hey, these are probably the typical inspections that may be requested. It's doing that. This goes back to market prep. I mean, there are things when you walk around the house, and we're not inspectors and we don't know everything, but as an agent, if there's some glaring thing, I mean, if the roof is, on the verge of being old, okay, well then you need to prepare your seller. Hey, if you don't want to have this inspected and you don't want to replace it or find out if you need, then just know that we need to think in the back of our head that may come up, right? You have windows that have seals broken. You need to have the conversation with your seller. Hey, maybe the buyer's not going to care, but they may, so that it's not a surprise to them when they get that back on that report. The other thing that I would say as the listing agent not to do, and it goes back to what you guys just said about the 50 page and whatever, don't just email your client the big long list, because here's two things. Number one, I don't care what inspection report you're using. The buyer might only ask for 3 things, but when you send the list, the seller thinks everything needs to be fixed,
repaired.
and they
I've had
freak
that one before.
out.
Yes. And I would say the longer the list, the more you need to go meet with them in person too. Like just to go item by item. And hey, it might be one of those where they have a ridiculous buyer that's not being realistic. Fine, then let's get out of the deal. Right. But most of the time, there's a way that you'll be able to work it out with the seller. Just say that, hey, one of my very favorite lines is if it's going to be a disclosure issue, we're going to have to repair it. And most items on there are. No doubt. And is it worth putting the house back on the market, which is always kind of the kiss of death, doing that, and over a CI outlet or over a double tapped wire. I mean, I don't think it is.
Well, and it's all about providing the service too. I mean, if you're able to either come over with the contractor or send somebody over, I mean, let's get a quote. Let's lay everything out in front of us, and then let's make a decision on what makes sense.
Well, because 9 times out of 10, and this is something that your seller needs to understand. And again, I don't think you should convince your seller to fix things that aren't material defects or aren't a safety issue. If they don't want to do it, I don't think you should really be advising that. But if they're legit issues, they're going to come up with the next buyer. And like you just said, Brad, it's a kiss of death to go back on the market because people wonder why. Now, I will say the other side of that is that also, I think that when deals blow up over inspections, and you guys you can definitely disagree with me. I mean, you can whenever you want to, but I think that when they blow up over inspections, it boils down to the seller wasn't prepared for that discussion to begin with.
Yes.
The buyer's agent also didn't set an expectation with their buyer.
That you're not buying a brand new home.
Correct. Or there's the most ridiculous thing inspection requests. Like we had one, it was in our neighborhood. A younger agent. This is great. Beautiful home. And this goes back to, again, sometimes it's a kiss of death, but sometimes for your seller, it ends up working out just fine. Like this particular situation, this agent had the offer on the property. We did all the inspections. It was great. They went for their walkthrough and there was hardwood floors, beautiful hardwood floors in the whole house. Okay. Well, we live in the Midwest. It's sunny. Yep. If you have rugs, when you pick up the rugs, the wood on the outside that was not underneath the rug is going to be a little bit different color than the other one. Over time, that's going to fade and they're going to match up, or you just put another rug down. This particular agent thought that our sellers should replace all the hardwood floors.
Yeah. I mean, it was an unrealistic
and literally his buyer walked away from the deal because he wanted all new hardwood floors. Well, we put it back on the market and we sold it for more money. I mean, come on, people.
And right away too. I mean, that's just not setting up a realistic expectation. I was listening to Knowledge Brokers, Byron, I'm pretty sure said this.
He doesn't like dogs.
He was comparing
it's a true story, PT.
The selling of a car and a house. I mean, they're two totally different things. Like that's one of the reasons why having a good real estate agent is so important. That our main job is to keep everybody calm, right? To keep the emotions down. So do not escalate the situation as an agent. Like he was saying, or maybe it was Lisa, but how in a real estate transaction, like when you're dealing with both sides of the transaction, when you're dealing with the seller, like they're really thinking if they get an offer really quickly that they gave the house away, that the neighbor says that they gave the house away, blah, blah, blah. When in most other things, you don't deal with those kinds of things. Plus, it really goes back to this is the biggest investment of people's lives. And I really think that we understate that a lot in the industry, and they are trusting us to guide them through the process. And most of my sellers that get kind of bent out of shape during the process, they say at the end, we're so glad that you were there to calm us down. Right. That it's just going over the facts, like getting the emotions out of it and going over line by line.
I believe that, there's a misunderstanding that there are some people that think they have to be Superman or Superwoman and
prove their worth.
Exactly. And that, and there's probably for some reason they're doing that, right? They either have messed up in the past with these clients or whatever, right? But our job is to not only fairly represent our clients, but also be that source of reason.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, like I've always said, and Andrea's heard me say this a lot, you have a buyer that wants to buy a home. You have a seller that wants to sell a home. Our job is to keep it together, right? At the end of the day, they would have never written an offer on the house if they didn't like it, right?
Yeah.
But it's the agents that get in the way at times. And the same thing on the seller side, which we're really talking about right now, is you let your clients get emotional, and it's your job to talk with a calm tone. And a lot of the times, I know it takes a little bit of effort, pick up the phone or say, hey, why don't we just meet in person and go over this? That's the best way. I mean, that is truly when you have a complicated transaction is to sit down with the client in person and go over everything. And normally I always use a 9.9 out of 10, but really 9.9 out of 10, they're going to calm down and they're going to know that you really care.
Well, and yeah, there's just better understanding from both sides.
Yep.
If you're sitting in front of each other and looking at the same thing, it is so easy for something to be taken out of context through your phone,
Yes,
or an email.
Yep.
It is, and that's, you're just setting up yourself for a failure.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too. The other thing that I feel like too is that a lot of agents want to get into listing homes right away early on in their career. And I think that not only is that might be going to be a painful experience for the seller, but I think it's going to be a painful experience for you. And I think what I mean by that is when you start going through, you know, really understanding your subject and then being able to comp it, you really have to understand the market. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be listing your homes, but I think it's where you need to have a mentor or pull in another agent that can help you. Because at the end of the day, if your first couple of homes that you list, that's really going to set the tone for you and your how those go, right? If you're going to get a good review from that, if the seller is going to be happy with your results, and if they're not, it's a disaster. Number one, you didn't learn anything, and number two, your seller just went through every one of these pain points and they had nobody to advise them on it, because it's a new thing. I mean, most agents work with buyers a lot in the beginning. The other thing is people don't understand is in listing, we used to say this all the time. This is back in the day before, you know, all the commission rules changed and whatnot. But like when we would go to a listing appointment and we would have a conversation and that discussion would come up, like we would always say to the seller, you know, at the end of the day, you know, that's fine that X, Y, and Z company might do it cheaper. You can hire them. But the job of a realtor is not just to stick a sign in the yard and throw some photos up online, you know, and determine price. It's all the things that we just talked about, right? And that's how you're really going to build a repeat clientele and be able to take care of. And then sellers won't feel all these pain points as much.
exactly.
Because
you've
you know how
relaxed
to
them.
do it. Yeah.
Yep.
So I really caution that, you know, and it costs money to list a property. It
I
costs
totally agree.
money. That's why you get paid a commission, because it costs money
Yeah.
to sell it.
So I just wanted to mention here, I really like those glasses, by the way. Are those
Don't you like-
leopard
I don't. Are they? Oh, they are.
design?
I thought you were talking about my outfit today.
Oh,
too.
and great outfit too. Yes.
Jeez Louise. All right. Anything we want to add on this? I think this was
I don't think so. I really think we hit it pretty well.
I hope we gave you guys
on that.
some tangible things things to consider if you're considering getting more into listings instead of buyers, and just things to be aware of. And if some of these things to you were like, wow, I never thought about that, or I don't know how to do that, then, you know, I hope you're in an environment where you have someone that you can go to learn, to shadow, to co-list some properties with, whatever it is, so that you can grow, and then it'll be better for everybody. Right?
I agree.
Yeah, I believe the biggest takeaway is what you just said. I mean, yes, it's easy for someone to stick a sign in the yard, put photos up, but you know, I just about 2 hours ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were asking, you know, just on the general, what are you going to do for me, essentially? But I didn't even mention that, you know, we're here to make things go smoother, but also make those pain points a little less, a little less painful for you throughout the entire transaction. And that should be said every single time that you step into somebody's home, is that we are here to make this go as smoothly as possible.
Well, and you've all probably noticed, like the really good agents, when you have not one but two really good agents, how smooth those transactions run, that they both know how to handle their clients. And what I mean by that is they don't blow it out of proportion. Now, if you have a major issue, then you'll work your way through it, but they know how to present things. Not only they really keep their clients calm, but they also keep the other agent calm as well. And they know that at the end of the day, you have a buyer that wants to buy and you have a seller that wants to sell.
Yeah.
Bingo.
I think it's good.
All right.
I agree.
Peace.
Peace out.